Hello friends, do you love tea and natural wellness products as much as I do? I've partnered with Positively Tea and Positively Botanicals, and I can honestly say I drink their organic loose leaf tea almost every day, and I love it. From organic teas to natural remedies, they offer high-quality products that support a healthy, mindful lifestyle. When you shop through my affiliate link, you not only discover amazing products for yourself, but you also help support the podcast. Visit the link in the show notes to explore their selections today. And for you coffee lovers, they have you covered as well. Treat yourself, support the show, and keep connecting with the natural world. Hello friends, and welcome to the Nature Wanderer podcast. It's good to have you here today. I am participating once again this year. This is my second year. I'm participating in the Podcasthon, which always happens in mid-March. And this year, my charity of choice is something that's really dear to my heart. And I really believe in their mission, and it's something that really is important to me, and it's for many reasons. I'll explain some of them in a minute. What is Podcasthon? Real quick, in case you didn't listen last year. Podcasthon, I'll leave a link in the show notes to their website, but this is where 1 week out of the year, hundreds of podcasters all across the world devote one episode during this week. And I'm actually devoting 2 episodes because this is not just here on the Nature Wanderer, I'm doing it on the Forest Connection as well. And we devote one episode this week to a charity of our choice. A charity that means a lot to the podcast, to the host, to what I hope will be everybody at some point, but these charities. So that's what Podcasthon is basically bringing attention to these charities that maybe you have never heard of before. And the charity I chose this year for Podcasthon is Quiet Parks International. Now you may have noticed something weird about my podcast this episode, and that's actually, you probably heard a lot of noise, car noise, when I first started. Now, normally when I'm doing an outdoor podcast, when I'm doing a podcast that I'm not in the studio, I have certain places across Western Europe where I like to go and record them because they are quiet. Mostly quiet. Not 100%, but mostly quiet. And the reason is because I don't want all that human background noise interfering with the message of nature. But today, because we're talking about Quiet Parks International and their mission, which I'll get into in a second, I wanted to start out with the human noise, what a lot of us are used to in our lives, what we consider the norm, and what we're trying to downgrade, what we're trying to get away from, because it keeps getting louder out there. We want it to get quieter. Now, I'm actually in Orchard Park on the on a rail trail. And so I'm walking through, it's an old railroad track that was torn up and now they turned it into a walkway. And you're going to notice that the road noise is disappearing the further I get away from it. I am still walking through people's backyards, but most people are indoors right now. Occasionally, like right now, I'm hearing in the distance a dog barking. Occasionally, you'll hear people's voices. If it was the weekend on a Saturday in the middle of summer, you'd be hearing the lawnmowers going. You'd be hearing people in their backyards having some fun, enjoying the day. But if you go during the week, especially on a day like today, I mean, it's nice and warm, but there's rain in the forecast. I actually got some rain earlier when I first started my hike. And that's when it's quiet. So I'm starting to hear more of the birds out here. And that is what we call a natural soundscape. Now, I did say I would mention why this topic is so important to me. And, when I was younger, I never really noticed the noise. And there is a difference between sound and noise. Sound is natural. Sound is something that's usually pleasant to you. And it can be artificial. I mean, it can be, the sound of a guitar being played or a piano gently, playing a melody to you. But we're talking mostly about not noise. Okay, the noise is the annoyance. The human-made, loud, annoying noises. Now, my wife and I used to live out in Arcade. We were just outside of the village of Arcade, New York, up on a hill. We bought some old farmland, built a house there, earth-bermed house, and we moved out there because both of us wanted to get out in the country where it was quiet. It was so silent there, most times, where we could wake up in the morning and go sit out on our patio. We had 12 acres. We really didn't even see our neighbors' houses. I mean, that's how secluded it was. And we had trees there that were blocking a lot of the noise. But because we were in the country, on the weekends, we get all the hunters shooting off their guns. We were 2 miles from a dirt track speedway, and so on Friday nights, we had to put up with the noise of the speedway. Now, they did close down for a couple of years, which was like a dream. It was so quiet on Friday evenings. Other than the occasional hot rod car going by, these big pickup trucks with all their loud tailpipes, and they're trying to be as noisy as possible. We put up with some of that, but for most of the time it was so peaceful. All we heard was natural soundscape. At nighttime we could sit out on our patio and we'd hear the owls calling in the woods. We could hear the spring peepers. We could hear the frogs calling. We were constantly hearing all the different bird calls. And that's what we enjoyed, but then it got, shoved out by that racetrack noise, by the gunshots in the woods around us. It got drowned out by the wedding venue across the street, which opened up for a few years. All of this extra noise. And I found it was starting to raise my blood pressure. Originally it didn't bother me, but it got to the point where we couldn't even talk. My wife and I couldn't even talk to each other because it got so noisy. And so I noticed that I was starting to get stressed every time I even heard a race car. It was starting to eat into me. And so that was one of the reasons we actually left there. One of the reasons, not the main reason, but it was one of the reasons. And we came out to Orchard Park, and we have a nice little house in a subdevelopment, and the neighbors are very respectful of each other. We get some noise here and there. But in the mornings, it's so quiet until the big pickup truck with the unfiltered mufflers on it. And they just start off at the stoplight, which is probably about a quarter mile from us, but it's close enough where, it's like, bud, it's 5 o'clock in the morning on a Saturday. People are trying to sleep. Do you have no consideration of others? And this is when it started to really bother me. It's like I felt like I couldn't get away from the noise. So it became kind of a mission to me to find the silence. And I'm constantly headed into areas of Western York where I can find silence. Like right now along this rail trail, I'm going to stop talking for a second. You can just hear the birds. There's a little rumble I can still hear some of the cars in the distance, but it's really faint. Now when I record up at Chestnut Ridge Park, I've got a couple of spots up there where it is dead silent. Except every once in a while, an airplane goes over. And that airplane, you don't hear it in the podcast when I'm recording them over in my quiet places. You won't hear the airplanes. And the reason is because I edit them out. Now today I'm doing no noise editing. I'm not editing out any noise. I'm just editing out my goofs. That's all I edit out here. But so this is why it's so important to me now for the health benefits that you get from being in a natural soundscape. Lack of noise. It just relaxes you. It comforts you. It makes you feel so much better. So as we wander through this idea of the silence in nature, it's worth taking a moment to highlight Quiet Parks International, which, as I said, is the charity that I chose for Podcasthon this year that I would like to highlight. Quiet Parks they're actually built on a really fascinating idea. And that idea is that quiet is not just something we enjoy in nature, it's something that we can actually protect. It can actually be protected. So that's what Quiet Parks International does. Normally, when most people think of conservation, I know I always do, when I talk about it, I think about it, most of the time I am actually talking about protecting forests, rivers, wildlife, clean air, all these things that we cherish when we go into nature. But there's another part of the natural world that is disappearing just as quickly as those other things. And that's natural sound. Scientists who study soundscapes use the term acoustic environment to describe the mix of sounds that fill a place. In a healthy natural landscape, those sounds are dominated by wind, water, the insects, the birds singing and chirping, and other wildlife. I mean, for most of human history, those were the sounds that humans lived with every single day. But today, human noise, it reaches almost everywhere. Whether it's aircraft overhead, distant highways, shipping traffic if you're near the ocean, machinery, and the constant background hum of modern life. It has dramatically changed the soundscape of our planet. Everywhere you go, you hear human noise starting to creep in. Now, researchers who have studied soundscape ecology, they've actually found that truly quiet natural places are becoming increasingly rare. One place I read that there's only like 12 places in the entire country that are void of silence for like 2 miles around. But even that can be disturbed by a plane flying overhead. So, I mean, it's really hard. Only about a dozen places. And that's where Quiet Parks International comes in. Their mission is to identify, certify, and help protect some of the quietest places left on Earth. These can be wilderness areas, protected parks, marine environments, or even smaller landscapes where natural sounds still dominate over human noise. So through programs like Quiet Parks, Quiet Trails, and Quiet Marine Parks, they're working to recognize and preserve those rare acoustic environments. And protecting quiet isn't just about the human experience. It's also about the animals. I mean, a lot of animals rely on sound to survive. Birds use calls to defend territory and attract mates. Frogs rely on their chorus calls to find one another. Even predators depend on subtle sounds to locate prey. And the prey animals, they depend on the silence that they can hear when the predators are coming. So when human noise fills this landscape, it actually can mask those signals, and it disrupts entire ecological relationships. So protecting quiet places help protect wildlife too. But there's also a human benefit. There's a growing body of research that shows that natural soundscapes and quiet environments reduces stress, it improves your mood, it sharpens your attention, and it supports overall well-being, both mentally and physically. In other words, quiet landscapes don't just feel good, they help us function better. Quiet Parks International is helping us recognize something that's easy to overlook. Silence in nature is not empty space. It's part of the ecosystem. And like any other natural resource, once it's lost, it can be very difficult to restore. So what is natural science from a scientific perspective? Well, silence does not mean zero sound. It means biologically appropriate sound levels and rhythms. So basically natural, things that belong in the natural soundscape, not interfered with by human sounds, human noises. And if you're out in a quiet place, you may notice that the decibel levels are much lower. And that's decibels, for those who don't understand that. Decibels are how you measure sound. So the decibel levels are much lower in an environment with natural sounds than it is in, for instance, a city. Of course, those two robins that just flew by, they were pretty noisy, but yep, chasing each other. It's mating season, it's spring. They're enjoying the nice weather. And I'm not going to cover it too much in this episode, but I did talk about it more in the Forest Connection. So if you go over to the Forest Connection podcast, you can learn a little bit more about the health benefits to humans of being in a natural soundscape. But I'll cover it real quick here. They have found, scientifically studied, but also Paul approved, because I have found that, and a lot of other people I've talked to who spend a lot of time in nature, they have found the same thing, that being outdoors, it actually helps the nervous system when you're in a quiet, natural soundscape. When you're in human sounds in the city, around a highway, around, wherever there's a lot of human noise interference, that noise helps to keep the brain in a state of vigilance and excitement and, always trying to, basically protect itself. And that's not good. Chronic noise exposure, that can actually make you sick. Quiet, that actually can heal. So it helps the central nervous system being in silent areas, silent natural areas. It actually helps to reduce dangerous hormones, stress hormones, and it reduces your stress. So some of the health benefits of a natural soundscape, first of all, it's been scientifically proven and Paul approved, because I'll say I have found this too. So it's Paul proven as well. And a lot of my friends who spend time in nature, they'll say the same thing. That there's a healing when you go into nature, especially when you're into a natural soundscape with no human noise around you. And one of the things, natural sounds actually help to support relaxation and emotional regulation. There's evidence that natural sounds improve mood and your well-being, and especially like forest soundscapes, they actually have been shown to do extreme stress reduction. I don't know if you've ever been outdoors in just in a nice quiet area and listening to the birds, and it just helps to lower your blood pressure, helps to relax you, helps you to smile and forget about all the bad stuff in the world. It just makes everything okay, it seems. Or I know I love sitting by flowing water. Something about the sound of a stream running by, or a waterfall. Yes, with the waterfall you're getting some other benefits, which I cover in the Forest Connection, so I won't cover it here, but you're getting other benefits from being around the waterfalls because of the ions, but what you're also getting is that sound of the waterfall, which relaxes, and there's something magical about it, how it makes you feel so much better. It's like winds and other low frequency sounds. Same thing. They just make you feel so much better. Now, you may say, well, I can listen to all these natural recordings, and, well, that does help. But there's just something different about being outdoors, because you're not just getting the sounds relaxing you, but you're getting the visual along with it. And that helps as well. Now, this is where Quiet Parks International really does a great job, is they understand that protecting sound is just as important as protecting the natural resource itself. Because overall, if you're protecting the soundscape, you're protecting the natural resource. I already mentioned about how wildlife depend on the silence. There's actually been some studies where in like a city environment, they have found that some of the songbirds have basically changed their songs. They've ditched the lower tones and they've replaced it with the higher tones. And the reason that they replace it with the higher tones is because those carry over the noise of the city, so that their mates can hear them, so that their friends can hear that there's danger in the area. So they have changed their calls to adapt to it. And you're probably thinking, well, so what's the big deal now with getting rid of all the noise? If they're adapting, well, you got to realize they don't adapt overnight. Yet our noise increases overnight. Yeah, we've been getting loud so quickly. We've been introducing more human noise so quickly that nature can't keep up with it. They can't adapt quick enough. So yes, they can adapt, but it takes a long time. So that's why it's important for places like Quiet Parks International to help protect these soundscapes, to help the soundscapes from the outside noises. Now, something I found really interesting about Quiet Parks International is they do a lot with the national parks, trying to work in cooperation with them to build these natural soundscapes. And you may think, like, well, you go into a national park, you go to some place. I spent a lot of time in national parks a couple of years ago. Went out west and did the Grand Circle. Did the Grand Circle around, the Grand Canyon National Park, and did like Arches and some of the other national parks around that area. My wife and I spent a couple weeks doing that. And I never noticed at the time until I started doing some research about Quiet Parks International, how much noise is really at these parks. I mean, my wife and I are not the touristy type. We don't like going to the real big touristy sections. Like Grand Canyon was our least favorite park because, well, the heat was so high. We didn't want to go down into the canyon. There were a lot of warnings about it. We weren't prepared to go hiking in the hot weather there. So we stayed up along the ridge, and it was just so packed with tourists. It was incredible. So that was not our thing. And they're noisy, loud tourists too. Screaming kids, and yeah, it just was not our style. We like it where it's quiet. But I started to realize that, even in the back areas where we were, when we did some hiking at some of the different parks, it's like there were still some people there, which was not a big deal. I enjoyed that. But it was the overhead noise, the airplanes, and not just big airliners. We're talking some of these smaller, planes, the tourist planes. And I found out that some of our national parks, which are supposed to be all these pristine, quiet places, are actually getting bombarded with noise from airplanes, from aircraft. I'm getting closer to the road again, so you're going to start hearing some human noises here over the nice, quiet sounds. But anyhow, in 1992, these are some of the stats about our national parks in the U.S. here. In 1992, aircraft noise was audible in Yosemite Valley more than 50% of the time. More than half the time. That's incredible. Now, currently, in the past few years, 675 air tours are authorized to fly annually over Arches National Park. 1,039 flights are allowed at Canyonlands. These are a couple of the parks that I went to when my wife and I went out west. And the number soars to 28,441 at Hawaii Volcanoes National Park. And you're probably wondering what the most is, which park has the most. Well, you might be surprised, but it's actually Grand Canyon. Yep, Grand Canyon stands alone. They are by far the national park most affected by noise from sightseeing helicopters and fixed-wing aircraft. Each year, some 800,000, yes, I said 800,000 individuals crowd into about 90,000 flights over Grand Canyon. If you do the math, that's about 246 flights a day, or about 20 flights per hour. And that's throughout the year. So yes, it's getting noisy out there, even in our national parks, which are supposed to be places to get away from society, to get away from the human development and the noise. And but we're still getting it, even in our national park. And Quiet Parks International is trying to do something about that. They're trying to work with congressional leaders and the FAA, and they're trying to work to get the air noise regulated more over our parks. What can you do to help Quiet Parks International? Well, there's actually quite a few things you can do. First of all, they're always looking to find more quiet, natural soundscape areas. So if you find some place around where you live that you think qualifies, go to their website and submit that place to their website. And hopefully they can send someone out to check it, make sure it is a quiet place, and they will add it to their map of quiet places. Yeah, they actually have an online map where you can find the quiet places that are out there. Now, I'm going to take a short pause here because it's getting really close to the road and it's getting a little too loud. So I'm going to pause a second here and we'll continue in a minute. Okay, well, I'm back. I wanted to get across the road. The rail trail crosses a pretty busy road and it was getting a little bit too noisy. So I wanted to make sure you would be able to hear me. Anyhow, what are some of the things you can do to actually help Quiet Parks International with their mission? Well, right around your own house you can help. And the way you do that is encourage local leaders to enact noise ordinances in your community. Make it quieter in your community. So whether you live in the city, a town, in the country, have them increase their noise ordinances. Some towns don't even have a noise ordinance. And then if they do, like we do in my town here, it needs to be enforced. You know, in New York State, there's actually a noise ordinance that you're not allowed to have over a certain decibel with your vehicle, but it's not enforced. Well, if you have that problem with noisy cars in your neighborhood, talk to the local authorities and see if they will go and sit at the corner and start ticketing these people so that they start quieting their cars down. So another thing you can do is just reduce the noise yourself. You know, think about when you buy outdoor lawn equipment. My yard is full of trees and I get a lot of leaves in the fall and I need to clear them because otherwise they'll suffocate the lawn. That's how many I get. They get really heavy. So because of that, I do own a leaf blower, and I am so anti-leaf blower, but I made sure when I bought it that it was a battery-operated one, not one of these gas guzzlers that not only pollutes the environment, but it also creates they're like the worst for disturbing noise. Seriously, the decibel level on a leaf blower is amazingly loud. So I made sure I got a battery operated one and I don't run it at the highest speed. So I make sure it's nice and quiet for my neighbors. I make sure I only make any noise outdoors after 8 o'clock, and sometimes I'll wait till 9, so I don't want to disturb people's rest, especially on the weekend. So these are things that, you know, you can do too, is just be aware. Maybe my neighbor has, I wish I had one, but I make sure that my lawnmower is very well tuned all the time, and if the deck starts getting noisy, I make sure I repair it right away so that it's quiet. My neighbor has an electric battery-powered lawnmower, which I think is wonderful. It's so quiet. I have two electric, semi-electric, they're electric hybrids, plug-in hybrids, but they have two electric vehicles, and they're so quiet. So think about what noise you're making. And when you're out on the trail, when you're in a natural area with the soundscape, tread quietly. Yeah, you don't have to make a lot of noise while you're out there. I don't know how many times I've put in my podcast about the people who are walking or running past me with their music loud. It's like, you know, you want to do that? That's fine. You don't want to listen to the birds? That's your business. That's not my problem. I don't care. But I do care when you're not wearing earbuds. When I have to hear your noise, you listen to your own noise. So that does bother me. Or these people who walk down the trail and they're talking and laughing really loud. It's like, you know, I talk to my wife while we're walking, but we don't do it loud. We do it quietly. And when we see someone else on the trail, especially someone who's alone, trying to enjoy the natural sounds, we stop talking until we pass. We'll do a wave of the hand or a nod or, really quiet hello. And that's about it. And then we're quiet. If you have dogs that bark at everything, leave them home. Yeah, or take them to a dog park. Don't take them to a park where people are hiking and trying to enjoy nature. These are all things that you can do yourself. But another thing that you can do is you can help support Quiet Parks International. Either financially if you can. I'll leave a link to the donation page in the show notes. But you can also support them in other ways. They're looking for volunteers. If you want to help record, if you have some good recording equipment, you can record for them natural sounds. You can also see what natural areas are in your area that are quiet and tell them about it. So you can report those quiet places to them on their website so that they can let others know where these places are. And if you want to volunteer in other ways for Quiet Parks International, I don't know what other volunteers they're looking for, but you can contact them and they will let you know what other areas they're looking for volunteers for. So those are ways that you can help support quiet in nature. So as we wrap up this episode, I'd like to come back to something simple. When you step into a quiet, natural place, you start to notice things you might otherwise miss. Maybe a single bird call echoing through the trees, or the wind moving through the canopy of the trees. The steady rhythm of water flowing over stone. Those sounds and the quiet spaces between them are part of the natural world just as much as the plants and animals we often focus on. But truly quiet places, they're becoming harder to find. They truly are. And that's why organizations like Quiet Parks International are working to identify and protect these landscapes where the natural sound still dominates and human noise is kept to a minimum. These places matter for wildlife, for ecosystems, and increasingly for human health as well. Now, I hope today's episode may have sparked your curiosity. If it did, I encourage you to take a few minutes to learn more about Quiet Parks International and the work they're doing. I'll leave links in the show notes to their website as well as how to donate to the cause. And as I mentioned, they're also looking for volunteers. And maybe this week, take a moment to do a little wandering of your own. Find a place outside where the human noise fades just a bit. And pause. Listen. You might be surprised by how much the natural world has to say. At least when you give it the space to be heard. So I'd like to thank you for joining me today. Before we close, I'm going to actually have a couple of minutes of natural sounds recorded by the volunteers and staff of Quiet Parks International. So enjoy hearing what nature sounds like. Thanks, and keep exploring the nature around you. Hello, friends. I hope you're out wandering through nature, exploring the natural world around you. Do you enjoy writing about your wanderings? Nature journaling is an awesome, fun way to remember all the adventures you have taken and how you felt during those journeys. If you're looking for some beautiful journals to keep track of all your wanderings, I have several available on Amazon, including some guided journals for children. Start your journey in journaling by clicking on the link in the show notes. Keep exploring the nature around you and keep journaling all your wanderings. Hey there, fellow nature wanderers. If you're like me, you love spending time outdoors, breathing in that fresh air and connecting with the natural world. But at home, have you ever thought about what's in the products you use every single day? That's why I'm excited to share Apple Valley Natural Soap with you. Their handcrafted all-natural soaps are made with organic ingredients, essential oils, and no harsh chemicals. Awesome! So they're not only great for your skin, but they're safe for the planet. And they don't just stop at soap. Apple Valley Natural Soap also carries a full line of natural skincare products, including shampoos, body butters, facial bars, and more, all designed to nourish your skin without synthetic ingredients. You can't beat that. That's just awesome. Whether you're hiking in the woods or just winding down after a long day, their products bring a little bit of nature right into your home. And the best part? By supporting Apple Valley Natural Soap through The Nature Wanderer, you're also supporting this podcast. Just head to the show notes and click on the link for Apple Valley Natural Soap. So go ahead, treat yourself and the environment to something better. Your skin and Mother Nature will thank you.